This Film is Lit, the podcast where we finally settle the score on one simple question. Is the book really better than the movie? I'm Brian. I have a film degree, so I watch the movie, but don't read the book.
And I'm Katie. I have an English degree, so I do things the right way and read the book before we watch the movie.
Look, some of us are lazy, alright?
If by lazy you mean wrong.
Prepare to be wowed by our expertise and charm as we dissect all of your favorite film adaptations and decide whether the silver screen or the written word did it better. So turn it up, settle in, and get ready for spoilers, because guess what? This film is lit. A cautionary tale of dinosaurs, greed, and the sexiest PhD since Indiana Jones. It's Jurassic Park, and this film is lit. I'll let listeners decide which one of the three PhDs in this they think is the sexiest since Indiana Jones, but I think we all know what the real answer is. Hello and welcome back to the 24th episode of This Film is Lit, the podcast where we talk about books that are based on movies. This week, it's a big one, Jurassic Park. So let's get into our first segment. Let me sum up.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
John Hammond, a wealthy businessman, funds research that successfully clones dinosaurs. After the death of an employee at the park he's building, Jurassic Park, he brings 3 specialists to the park to get their approval and in order to help calm the nerves of his investors. While they're at the park, programmer Dennis Nedry sets into motion his plan to steal and sell dinosaur embryos to a competing company. His plan causes all manner of problems for the guests, leaving them to survive and escape Jurassic Park. So there you go. Let's move on to Guess Who?
Who are you?
No one of consequence.
I must know.
Get used to disappointment.
Okay, we've got 5.
Oh boy.
And they're fairly short.
Good.
He was short. As he sat in the chair, his feet didn't touch the carpeting. He tugged at the red silk handkerchief in the breast pocket of his sport coat.
Okay, short. The fact that he has a sport coat with a silk handkerchief, I'm gonna have to assume that that's John Hammond.
Yes, it is.
Woohoo! I thought it was potentially Nedry, but he wouldn't wear a sport coat.
Yeah.
With a silk handkerchief. So, and nobody else is short. Nailed it, 1 for 1.
He was a stocky, muscular man in his mid-30s, wearing an Armani suit and wireframe glasses.
Armani suit and wireframe glasses. Boy, I guess I could see this being... He doesn't wear an Armani suit in the movie, but they do kind of talk about him being a rock star, so I could see this being Dr. Ian Malcolm. But I can't remember if he has glasses. He does. Yeah, I think. Or it could be one of the lawyer. Would be the other one that makes sense, but not so much for the... Didn't you say muscly build or muscular build?
Yes, stocky, muscular man.
Stocky, muscular. And Grant wouldn't wear an Armani suit, so it's either Malcolm or the lawyer. I'm going to go with Malcolm.
It's Gennaro. It's the lawyer.
Is that his name? Okay, I couldn't remember his name. So the lawyer. Yeah, that makes sense.
A tall, thin, balding man of 35, dressed entirely in black.
Okay.
Black shirt, black trousers, black socks, black sneakers.
This, I'm going to have to say, was Dr. Ian Malcolm.
Yes.
The black is a pretty signifying character
trait.
It's
a dead giveaway for him.
Yes, it is. And now I feel dumb for having guessed him on the first one.
Well, to be fair, I didn't say what color the Armani suit was.
No, that's true. But even still, Armani suit didn't really make sense. I don't know. I just thought maybe.
A thin man in a button-down, short-sleeve shirt and tie smoking a cigarette.
Oh, well. Okay. Now I don't know his name, but the cigarette, I'm going to go off on the one character trait we can glean from this is that he's smoking a cigarette. And he does wear a button-down shirt and tie, would be Sam Jackson's character.
Arnold. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's him.
Yes.
Yeah, him being a chain smoker is like one of his defining traits.
It is his.
It's his thing.
That and something we'll discuss later. Just was that in the book segment, or momentarily was that in the book segment?
He was a big man, 50 years old, with a steel gray mustache and deep blue eyes.
We don't have a lot of characters left here, which makes me think this is Dr. Alan Grant. Doesn't have a mustache in the movie. But the blue eye... I'm trying to think if there's any other people it could be at that point, that age, that it's gotta be... He said 50s?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm gonna say it's Dr. Grant.
It's Muldoon. Robert Muldoon.
Which one's that?
The hunter guy.
Oh, yeah, Muldoon, right, the hunter.
He's like a big game hunter.
Yeah, and he says he runs the... Hammond in the movie introduces him as, like, he's one of the people that, like, runs or is one of the main people at one of his reserves, and he, like...
Yeah, he's like a big game expert.
Yeah.
Type of
in, like,
guy.
Africa.
Yeah.
One of Hammond... Yeah. Hammond, like, owns a reserve in Africa or something like that.
And there's no description of him, really, other than that. But I'm picturing, like, a big, giant handlebar type.
Yes.
Like an old-fashioned... like Victorian-era big game hunter.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm mad that he doesn't have that in the movie.
I'm picturing 100% in Jumanji.
Yes.
His dad's... the version of his dad in Jumanji.
With the German army pith helmet.
Yeah, with the pith helmet and the giant mustache. Exactly. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what he was going for. I like the guy they got.
He's great.
Is he Australian, I think?
Maybe.
Yeah. He's either Australian or I'm pretty sure he's Australian, but yeah, the mustache would have been fun. So, all right, well, 3 for 5. It's not terrible.
Yeah, not bad.
Let's move on to. Is that in the book?
Nicholas Flamel is the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone.
The what?
Honestly, don't you two read?
All right, I got a lot of things because this is such an iconic film with so many iconic lines and moments that pretty much. Just all of them, I was like, well, let's see if that came from the book or if that was a movie edition. So got a lot, so strap in. But we don't have a lot for Lost in Adaptation, so when we get there, it should be pretty quick. First scene, when we're first introduced to Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler, right? Mm-hmm. On their dig site in Arizona, New Mexico,
I don't know, it's
the
Montana.
Badlands.
It's the Badlands are in
Montana.
Yeah.
Okay. They're on a dig site, and there's that kid who's there, and says
the little bratty kid,
the mouthy kid at the dig site. He says something like, "It doesn't look that scary," and then Grant goes and messes with them. First, is that kid in the book? Is there a kid in the book that scene?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay. Secondly, then we can just discuss this. Why is that kid there?
I mean, like, within the logic of the universe, why would he be at the dig?
Yeah, there are a bunch of... That's what I mean. I was so confused. I'm like, where did this kid come from?
He's there to establish the fact that Grant is uncomfortable around children.
Right. I understand why he's there thematically.
But I don't know, like, realistically why he would be there.
There are a bunch of, like, college students, and I assume, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's some sort of, like...
It's a bunch of, like, interns and grad students,
on a dig with these 2 PhDs.
I mean, I guess maybe we're to assume that there's some kind of tour going on.
He's the only person.
I know,
it's just
the only
some kid.
Like, if there were several kids, I'd be like, okay, school tour.
Yeah.
But
he's just one kid in the back. Everybody else there looks like, and none of them, and they're not the age that would have a 13-year-old kid with them. They're all like college age people mostly, other than like, you know. But we famously have established that Grant doesn't and Sattler don't have kids, so it's not obviously it's not their kid. But like,
yeah,
I was like, why is this kid here? But yeah, I mean, I know why he's there.
Because narrative.
Yeah, I just don't get why he's there, actually. I never thought about that before until this time. I'm like, where's this kid coming from? All right, because they're in the middle of the desert. Anyways, so no mouthy kid in in the desert. Well, it's not the desert. It's Badlands in Montana, but whatever. This is just a line. So then we're introduced to Nedry and his plan and his the guy who basically hired him from this competing company, nameless competing company that wants their research. First, the line, because it's a funny line where he goes, Dotson, we've got Dotson here. See, nobody cares. Is that line in the book?
That is not in the book.
Okay.
He does give him shit about wearing a disguise.
Oh, like because he comes kind of dressed up.
Yeah, in the movie.
Yeah, he's like, you look like you're in a spy movie or something.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah. Okay, and now this is the most important part of this scene that I must know about because it's one of my favorite things in the movie. It's one of my favorite props from any movie ever, and I desperately want to find it somewhere and buy one. The shaving cream can.
Yes, that is in the book.
It is a shaving cream can,
yes.
and then he uses to put the
Yes,
embryos
it's
in.
the same thing. It's Gillette in the book and not Barbasol.
So
I want to know, I did like a little bit of Googling. I didn't do a deep dive or anything.
Yeah.
Trying to find out how much Barbasol paid to get to be that iconic prop.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything. If anybody knows.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because to me, that thing was, when I was such a little kid, I always just thought it was the coolest thing. Like Nedry does. He's like, this is the coolest thing. The way it unscrews and then it pops up and you can put the little vials in. It's just something about it. And especially even later when he actually does steal. So there's something super weirdly. There's a bunch of a couple moments like this in the movie that I found very tactily satisfying, like in the way people interact with things. This is a weird thing, but this is one of them when he puts the vials into each the sound it makes and the way they sit in there, and then when he locks it and then shuts it, it's a very James Bond kind of a gadget and
too.
And the sound design on it and the way it, like I said, the way it locks and shut, and it's just so cool. And I was like, I want one of those. I really want one of those. So I'm glad to know that is in the book because that's one of my favorite props in any movie of all time. So this is a big one kind of, and I thought it was really interesting, and I would be interested to see how they do it in the book. So in the movie, Hammond shows up and he says, I got a proposition. I want you to come to this park. But he never tells them in the movie, hey, I made dinosaurs.
Yeah.
That's never, at least as we say it, they do not find out what this is about really until they get there and are in the park and see the dinosaurs. It's like the implication. And so I'm wondering if that's how it is in the book, or does he more specifically tell them before they fly down there, we made dinosaurs. I want you to come look at them, and we made a dinosaur park.
It plays out similarly. You kind of get the idea that they might have a little bit of an inkling of what's going on, but it sounds so ridiculous that they're kind of like, yeah, that's, there's also a whole other, plot line sort of that happens in the beginning that the movie doesn't include, where there is a small dinosaur found on another island and they send the remains of it to Dr. Grant to have him identify it. Yeah. And he's like, it looks like a dinosaur, but it can't be. Yeah. But when they actually go into the park and see the dinosaurs for the first time, that all plays out pretty similarly to the movie.
Okay, cool. And that's kind of what the feeling I got, and that makes sense, is that he never outright tells them, but you get the feeling that they are like, is this guy hinting at what he can't be? Yeah. But maybe, and then they don't really buy it until they're there and they see it. This is a little character thing. Now, obviously, it wasn't in the description of of John Hammond in the brief description you read of him, but does he have his iconic from the movie walking stick with the the mosquito trapped in amber on top?
I don't think so.
No?
I don't remember.
But it would be hard to know if there was a little line about it.
I don't remember any specific mention of that in the book.
Okay.
I tried to flip back and see, but like you said, it's probably a throwaway
if
line.
It is, yeah.
If anybody else read it along with us and remembers, because I feel like I would have marked that, had I come across it, but I really don't. I don't think it's in the book.
And again, we read his description, so it's not in his initial character description. But to be fair, he doesn't have it when we first meet him. I don't know when they meet him when. Yeah,
I went back and I double checked his initial introduction, and I double checked where they're actually talking about the amber.
Right.
And I couldn't find any mention of it.
Okay. So that might be a unique character addition for the film. Yeah. Which it is a very iconic
and it
thing
is
for
a
him.
Visual thing, too.
Yeah. Cool. All right. And then, so speaking of the first time they see the dinosaurs, does Hammond say, "Welcome to Jurassic Park"?
No.
No! What?
No.
That's so disappointing. It's like, it's so good. It's really just so good because of how, what's his name? Now I'm blanking on the actor's name. Delivers it. It's just his voice is so great.
Yeah, it is.
Attenborough.
Oh, yeah, it's Attenborough.
Because it's Attenborough, but it's not Richard Attenborough. No, it is Richard Attenborough. It's not David Attenborough. Because David Attenborough is obviously the famous voiceover guy who does all the nature movies, nature documentaries. And Rich, I don't think they're related. They're just British guys. Attenborough's probably a common name over there, but maybe they are. I don't know. So he doesn't say "Welcome to Jurassic Park."
No.
Okay. Love that line. Welcome to Jurassic Park. Is there because this is interesting, and it makes sense because they're making a theme park / zoo, as they say in the movie. And it works well for in the film to explain to us quickly and sort of simply the process. They go on a ride, basically. They sit down in a big auditorium that moves, and then there's a video that plays, and they see the lab, and it just basically explains the process of how they made dinosaurs. Is there a ride like that in the movie, or how do we figure how do they explain the process, or do they?
There's not a ride. There's a lot of talking, a lot of science babble, talking type stuff in the book. The movie kind of gives us all that information up front. The book stretches it out a little more. It's more like drawn out. And we find out here and there, we actually did this to achieve this result. And then you see how it goes terribly, horribly wrong. But I liked the way that the movie did it. It's easy to understand, like you said, and it's a great send-up of, like, Disney and other theme parks like that. Yeah,
I also just I think it makes a lot of sense because that's the big question the audience is going to have.
Yeah.
When you go, we made dinosaurs, the next thing, and it's the next thing they would want to know.
Right.
They would be demanding, as scientists, the three of them would be demanding of him, like, how did you do this? Explain to us how you made dinosaurs. And that's what the audience wants to know. So I think just kind of doing it all at once and being like, this is how we made dinosaurs, and explaining it through with a ride where it's very kind of dumbed down and cartoony and simple to understand, relatively speaking, as pseudoscientific as it is, it makes a bit of sense without thinking about it too hard. So I think that's effective. But no ride in the book.
No.
All right. Another famous line. Dr. Ian Malcolm, everybody's favorite. Does he say, life finds a way? Yes. He does?
Yes. It's not verbatim to what it is in the movie. But yes, that is in there.
Life finds a way. There you go. I'd imagine they haven't written in the uhs and the ums that are inherent in Goldblum's speech pattern, because obviously they cast him after the fact, and that's just kind of how he talks. That was kind of my feeling is that's his take on it, less so than any sort of character instruction he was given. Another famous Goldblum line: "Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should."
Again, yes, but not verbatim. Not verbatim. That one's even less verbatim than Life Finds a Way.
Okay.
But it is in there.
All right. Yeah, because that's one of the most quoted. People use that all the time, even as a joke, and sometimes seriously, and like it's
I use that every time they come out with a new weird candy flavor.
Yeah, people use it colloquially all the time for Just like, nonsense.
Yeah,
That is
like those key lime pie Twizzlers we ate earlier.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, why? Okay. Another famous, we're just doing, I have a lot of lines because, like I said, everything's so iconic. And this is going back to Arnold's character, Samuel Jackson's character. We talked about his cigarette smoking, chain smoking is, it's in his character description in the book, the fact that he has a cigarette. How about his iconic line that he uses at least 2 or 3 times in the movie? Hold on to your butts.
I couldn't find that one when I went back and looked.
Yeah.
I don't think it's in the book.
Yeah. That to me, that sounds like maybe that might have been a Sam Jackson insert.
Yeah.
That kind of sounds like a thing he would say. Maybe not. Maybe it was written, but it definitely sounds like something he would try to kind of add in there. But iconic imagery now instead of iconic lines. The Jurassic Park gate, the giant wooden gate that they travel through when they enter the park.
No, not really.
No?
No.
Okay.
There is a sign.
That's not nearly as interesting. Yeah.
No description of an iconic giant
like a
gate.
giant wooden gate resembling, as Dr. Malcolm says, what he got behind there, King Kong, because they have famously in King Kong the giant door. All right. So that's definitely, I would assume it's safe to say that they took that imagery from King Kong. Mm-hmm. Probably.
I mean, and I think that's a valid source to pull a reference from for something like this.
Yeah, totally makes sense. They're very, very similar in genre.
Yeah.
Sort of cautionary tales about man exploiting nature, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. All right. Does Dr. Sattler bury herself elbow deep into giant piles of dinosaur droppings?
No, she doesn't.
Is there any of that scene with the Tyrannosaur, or not the Tyrannosaur, the...
it's a Triceratops in the movie. It's a Stegosaurus.
Okay, but there is like one that's sick.
Yeah, there is one that's sick, and she does help Harding, the veterinarian, to diagnose it. What happens in the book is that she can't figure out, she knows it's the berries, but she's trying to figure out why, and she finds piles of gizzard stones. Which, if you know anything about birds, sometimes birds will swallow stones because they don't have the same digestive mechanisms. Yeah. So they swallow stones to help grind up their food and then cough them back up. It's thought that dinosaurs did the same thing.
Okay.
So she finds that and deduces that they're swallowing the berries on accident when they pick up the stones.
All right.
Maybe not as fun as poop.
No.
But poop is more visual.
Yeah. But she actually doesn't find any, I don't remember how that resolves. She doesn't find any of the things in the stool. She looks and she's like, no.
I don't think we ever find out how
they never resolve
that.
Movie, that's kind of just, I thought about that. I was like, I don't think, because I was like, in my memory, she finds that they were eating.
Yeah.
But then when we watched it, I'm like 99% sure, unless I'm blanking on this from last night, that she doesn't. She goes, well, I don't see any.
She's like, oh, I'm going to stay here and help him with this. And then they leave and then the plot is off to the races.
Yeah.
And they never come back to that.
I'm a little surprised that they didn't do anything. I'm like, I don't know. Interesting. Okay. But also, there was one pile of droppings in that scene that is comically large. The first one that Malcolm walks up to and says, that's a giant pile of shit or whatever he says, is comically like a Brontosaurus is maybe, but that Triceratops is not nearly tall enough or big enough to be making. It's like the size of a Volkswagen Bug.
I mean, unless we are to assume that they are very tidy and always go in the same spot.
But my point is that it's not tall enough. The pile is higher than it's the body of the...
Well, I don't know, man.
I'm just saying it doesn't...
It's a visual gag.
Yeah, I know, it is. And it's funny, and it's great, and I just never thought about it, but I was like, that's not the Triceratops. That thing's as big as... The pile of shit is as big as the Triceratops is. That's not possible. All right. More iconic imagery. In fact, one of the most iconic moments from the film, and maybe all of film, the footsteps in the distance causing the tremors in the water.
No, that's not.
There's no... Okay. Mm-mm. That's one of those... It's one of the most iconic moments in the film where the first time the T-Rex shows up, I think.
But that's
it's the
another
first time.
great visual.
Yes.
And I'm not sure that would have translated into...
I think you could, that they didn't notice that one of the characters didn't hear anything initially necessarily, but one of them noticed, I think you could write that in a way that was interesting. Maybe. I think you could do it. That they notice the water shaking and are like, stop, and everybody stops and is quiet, and then they see the water shaking, then they start to hear the footsteps. I think it would be doable, but it's definitely, so the way they did that, apparently, because I remember, I don't know where I saw this in an interview or something, there's just in those scenes, or at least with the ones where the cups are on like the dashboard of the car, supposedly, this is what I've heard, it seems like you could just bang on the outside of the car, but somebody was sitting inside the car, like under like right next to it with an acoustic guitar, and was like plucking like the lowest string or something. No, I have to look that. I remember reading something about that, and I thought that was like, seemed not necessary. Like you could just like hit the car, or like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And that can't be how they do the part with the puddle later. They must like bang on the ground next to it or something.
Something.
I don't know. Anyways. All right. So the tremors in the water, not from the book. Does the lawyer get eaten?
No.
No?
This is a complicated...
Okay.
So Gennaro in the movie is kind of an amalgamation of two different characters in the book. There's Gennaro the lawyer, and then there's Joe Regis, who's the head of PR. Mm-hmm. And Regis gets eaten in the book. Okay. Gennaro lives.
Gotcha.
He sees it out till the end.
But they kind of, you're saying, so they just kind of combined those two characters into just the lawyer, and so...
Yeah, and like, then he gets chopped.
He gets eaten, yeah.
And they lower the number of characters we have to keep track of.
Yeah. You know what's just funny I thought about? Other than like the opening scene, there's not a lot of people in this movie.
Yeah.
It's pretty bare bones. I mean, there's like... Our main cast is 3 doctors, the 2 kids, that's 5. Hammond is 6. Nedry is 7, and the hunter is 8, and then Arnold is 9. That's like it, pretty much.
There's the vet, but
he's in it for a scene.
Yeah, he's in it later, but he also kind of disappears.
Yeah. Anyways, okay. So the lawyer doesn't get eaten, but the other guy, the PR guy, does. But the lawyer in the movie is both of them combined, so he gets eaten. He gets half eaten. Which is actually what happens, because they find him in 2 different places in the movie. His body. Does Newman get eaten by a Dilophosaurus?
Yes.
I say Newman and Nedry.
Yeah.
Newman and Seinfeld. He gets eaten by a Dilophosaurus?
Yes.
In the book, do they spit?
Yes.
Because that's not scientifically accurate at all. So I was wondering if that was from the book. Apparently there's zero evidence that there are any dinosaurs that spit stuff on people.
That is in the book. And that scene is pretty horrific.
In the book?
Yeah. Because we experience it from his perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
pretty gruesome.
It's definitely played more for kind of laughs.
Yeah.
To some extent in the movie, because there's even a notice that I don't know if I've ever noticed this, when he slips after he gets out of the car he's going to put the chain around the tree or whatever to get his car down to the road. He slips on the water, like he's standing on like a waterfall kind of area. And when he slips in the movie, it makes like a cartoon slipping noise. It goes like whoop. Yes, it does. It 100% makes like a whoop, like a banana peel slipping noise. And I was like, oh, that's silly. I never noticed that. Yeah, and then because there's the whole thing where he tries to play with it like a dog. He's like, go fetch and that sort of thing. And it's definitely played more for laughs. It still has its moment where it's like, it's dark humor, because it's definitely still creepy and weird, when things in the car. Anyways, all right. Gets eaten by a Dilophosaurus, and they do spit in the book, even though that is not accurate. They don't do that. They're supposed to. I did like 10 minutes of Googling. I was like, I don't think there are any dinosaurs that actually spit stuff. And the one article I looked at was like, nah, probably not.
Probably not. But we don't really have that much soft tissue to look at.
That's true. You never know. All right. staying on the characters getting covered in expectorant. That's the word I was looking for. Does Lex get sneezed on?
No, it's not in the book.
No Brontosaurus sneezing in the book? Okay, well, that's all right. It's fine. I feel like there's probably more jokes in the more humor in the movie than is evident in the book. It seems like a few more of those. It's a fun family blockbuster summer movie. They gotta have
gotta have the jokes.
Gotta have the jokes. Does Tim get electrocuted?
No,
he doesn't. Mm-mm. Is there a scene where they have to climb a fence and there's like a?
I don't remember them having to climb a fence.
Oh, okay. So then that whole thing is out because I was like, because the parallel action of her restarting the power, and them on the fence is very tense. Like, are they gonna make it over in time? So that was added for the movie.
Yeah, I don't remember that happening in the book at all.
All right. When at one point when Sattler's going to restart the electricity after Ned screwed it all up, they need to restart this whole system. They reboot it, but then somebody has to go and turn the main breakers on, or what some thing has to happen. And her and what's his name, the hunter, Muldoon go to the other end of the compound. And they're getting tracked by velociraptors in the movie. And she runs in and gets the power restarted, blah, blah, blah. But Muldoon gets eaten by a velociraptor. Does that happen similarly? And most importantly, does he say the line, "clever girl," right before he gets eaten?
There is no clever girl.
Oh, okay. It's the only part that matters.
He lives to the end.
Oh, does he? He doesn't get eaten?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because they bring back a very similar character from my memory, in the second movie. Mm-hmm. There's a new him, basically. And I wonder if in the book it's the same guy.
Yeah, maybe.
But they wanted to they needed to kill a few more people in the movie, maybe. I'm trying to wonder, because there is a very similar guy who's like the big game hunter that's in the sequel, from what I remember. And he even has he's like Australian. Seems like the same character.
I don't know. I haven't read The Lost World.
Okay.
So I don't know what similarities there may or may not be to that book. And I've honestly, the two, Jurassic Park 2 and 3, I've only seen bits and pieces of, I think.
I've seen them both. I've seen 2 probably a bit more. I've seen it a handful more times. It's got a couple really great scenes in it. Overall, it's not quite as good as the first one.
Which one has the scene at the beginning where the little girl gets bitten by a...
That's the second one.
The second one?
No. Yes, that's the second one.
That scene's in this book.
Oh, is it?
FYI.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's the second one, because the beginning of the third one is they're parasailing. And they're parasailing, and then one of the kids parasailing, one of them gets eaten or something, and then the other one falls. Or no, the people on the boat get eaten. They go through a cloud and they look down. The people on the boat got eaten, and then the guy in the parasailing, him and it's like a little kid, and they crash on the island.
Oh.
And then they have to survive, and the whole thing is about them going. Some rich people paying Dr. Grant to go try to rescue their kid from the island because they think he's still alive, which he is, but. That's the third one. And the second one, I'm pretty sure, is the one that starts with the family on a yacht with a little girl, and she gets eaten by the little dinosaurs. Because those little dinosaurs are in the second movie.
Okay.
It's like a pack of tiny
they're
dinosaurs.
Little, I don't remember the name of them, but they're scavengers in the book. They eat half dead things and small things. There's a whole other thing where they're attacking babies. That's really horrific.
Yeah, that's the second. That happens in the second one. So, okay, interesting. No clever girl. That's wildly disappointing. The kitchen raptor scene, up there with the most iconic scenes in the film. Do they hide from velociraptors in the kitchen?
Yes, that scene is in the book. It plays out slightly differently, but it is there.
It is there. Okay, that's a big one. And then this we know is different. But, I assume must be different because in the prequel episode, we talked about how Steven Spielberg wanted to rewrite the ending to feature the Tyrannosaurus Rex because he's like, this is the money maker.
Yeah, it's the money shot.
So in the movie, they're running for their lives. They get out of the kitchen. The kids reunite with Dr. Grant and Dr. Sadler, and they end up in like the visitor center, like that we first saw. It's like the main entryway, like the big visitor center, and they're cornered by two raptors. And right as they're about to get eaten, T-Rex comes bursting through and grabs the velociraptors and is throwing them around and eats them, and then they get away.
That scene is not in the book.
All right, well, we knew it wasn't because Spielberg said he rewrote the ending.
The ending is very different.
Okay, let's talk about that. I mean, now if there's a better in the book, better in the movie, we can save it for that, or if you want to talk about how it's different now, we can do that.
Some of the stuff leading up to the ending is similar. The raptors are kind of like laying siege to the visitors' quarters area, sleeping place. It's not the exact same, but it's a similar concept. They get the electricity back on, so that kind of in the book that stops the raptors from their advances because now the electricity's back on, so they can't like keep coming through. So. After that happens, I don't know, it's tough to describe almost because the ending of the book, I don't want to call it anticlimactic because I don't think it's anticlimactic, but it's definitely more like technical than the movie is. Like, in the movie we've got the raptors and then the T-Rex comes in and it's all very action-packed. Yeah. And then in the next shot they're like in the helicopter flying away. Yeah.
I felt like they streamlined that sort of end of it.
In the book, they run a computer simulation not a simulation. They run like one of the computer programs to try and figure out how many dinosaurs are actually on the island. And then they have to go and there's a raptor nest on one part of the island. So they have to like go and investigate that and see if they can figure out like actually how many raptors and like eggs are down there. And spoiler alert, there's a ton of them.
Well, that's interesting.
And then...
Because they do make, sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but they do make an allusion in the movie. We do see at one point that they are able to breed. Even
and that's a much bigger thing in the book than it is in the movie. It
seemed like it should have been.
Yeah.
Because he never really even mentions it. We see it.
Right.
But I guess maybe he does mention it to one of them, but like very briefly, and it's like not really important. We're more worried about like the big finale.
Yeah, that's way more of a thing in the book than it is in the movie. So they go and they investigate the raptor nest, and then they're able to get off the island. The Costa Rican government sends like
the Coast Guard or something.
The Coast Guard or like special forces or something to get them off the island. And then it's kind of implied that Costa Rica like nukes the island.
Oh.
'Cause and again, I haven't seen the sequel movies. I haven't read The Lost World, but I think the action like moves to another island.
It is a different island.
And,
they somehow got off the island. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure it's not Isla Nublar in the sequels. I'm pretty sure it's a slightly adjacent island.
But it ends with all of them like kind of stuck in Costa Rica because the government doesn't want to let them leave because they just caused like
a giant crisis of
a big old problem.
Yeah, makes sense.
An environmental crisis.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Yeah. Definitely a lot cleaner. Little more. A little more. It's not even so much more of a feel good ending as it is just not dealing with any of the fallout.
The book deals with the fallout. Which is thematically appropriate.
Yeah.
The movie, not so much.
No, it makes more sense in the sense of the cautionary tale. That we discussed. That the movie is, or that the story is, to address the fallout of the situation and everything that comes after. I don't even think they really touch on it too much in like the sequel movies. I mean, the fallout in the sequel movies is that there's more dinosaurs still on other island. Like there's more problems from the first movie, but they never really touch on the fact. I'm sure there's throwaway lines about Hammond and what happened and that sort of thing. I just don't. It's been so long since I've seen those movies, but I think that's a. I get why the movie changed it and made it cleaner and easier, but well, we'll get it on when we get onto it in other segments. But real quick, then let's move on to Lost in adaptation.
Just show me the way to get out of here, and I'll be on my way.
Where is it lost?
Yes, and I want to get unlost as soon as possible.
I just have one here, and I'm hoping the book has more input on this because I've realized I never really understood why they brought Dr. Ian Malcolm. So they bring the three specialists to the island to get them to sign off on the idea because the investors are worried because a guy died in the beginning. And so the investors are like, get some experts to be like, nah, it's all good. Is in the movie the implication. So I get the paleontologist, which is Dr. Grant, and paleobotanist, sure, which is Sattler. Why a chaos theorist? I assume that's what he is. He's like a philosophy guy, like a chaos theory. Like
he's a mathematician.
Mathematician, right. So why him?
So he's the pioneering theorist on chaos theory.
Right.
So the explanation that we're given in the book, and it is a little hard to go back and find a satisfying, specific explanation for this, because it's kind of all scattered throughout the book.
Right.
But I think the idea is that this law firm hired him because he is the pioneering mind on chaos theory, which is like tries to find small patterns in unpredictable behavior.
Right.
So they hired him to basically like investigate the situation and see where it fits in with his theory and see if he thinks that the park is viable or not.
I guess I could see from the idea with the chaos theory and thing, him being a mathematician and maybe even statistician to some point or to some effect, that they want him to basically go look at the operation and to think and kind of think it through and see if he thinks where he thinks the problems lie, like where things could go off the rails. Basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically it, is that he's there to kind of look at it and say, okay, here's what's going to go wrong.
Right. Which I guess I get. It still seems a little strange that he'd be the person and not like, I don't know, some of the like, whoever the leading person who's in charge of the world's biggest zoo. Or, you know what I mean? Like, who deals with a bunch of very dangerous animals and knows how to keep them in captivity and the way the systems work to keep them from getting out and hurting people and all that stuff. You would think those would be more of the kind of people they would want, not like a chaos theory mathematician. Seems a little strange to me, but anyways, okay. But yeah, that I get it, at least a little bit. In the movie, I feel like they gloss over it so quickly that I'm just like,
yeah.
Why?
You're like, why is he
who
there?
Is this guy? Why? He's just like...
He's just there to flirt with Laura Dern.
Yeah, he's just there to flirt with Laura Dern, like, uncomfortably. All right, well, then let's move along to Better in the Book.
You like to read?
Oh, yes. I love to read.
What do you like to read?
Everything.
All right, so this is a big thing for me, because I have a thing about this.
Okay.
In the book, Grant and Sattler are not together.
Interesting.
Absolutely not. And I get it from a character arc perspective for him with the kids. Fine.
Yeah.
But it's just so damn Hollywood to be like, oh, we have to have the romance. They have to be together. And I think it's more interesting and unexpected to have them not be together. Also in the book, she's his graduate student.
Oh.
Like, he's in his 40s and she's in her 20s.
Yeah. They appear to be slightly closer in age in the movie.
Yeah.
She's still younger than him considerably.
She looks
maybe not considerably, but
at least a bit
like
younger
5
than
to 10
him.
years younger at least. I'll push back only in the sense that I agree it definitely feels like the Hollywood thing to do, which they break up, I think, subsequently. I'm pretty sure they're not together in like the sequels. Well, neither of them are in the second one. Spoiler. And Grant's in the third one. So the second one's just Dr. Malcolm and some other people, new characters. If my memory serves me correctly. Oh, and his daughter. His daughter's in the second one. Malcolm, one of his kids. So I'll push back, though, on the idea that them being together. Yes, I agree. It's definitely a Hollywood thing. I kind of like it in this. I like the nature. One, I like with his growth with the kids thing is interesting because he hates kids. And she kind of... But the other thing I like is that she's never... Like, she's, like... Not, like, dying to have kids, but she kind of, like, wants to have kids. I don't know. The other thing I like is that... One of the things I like so much about her character in the movie is how self-possessed she is. And how competent she is.
Yeah.
I really like that in the movie. And I think it's interesting that... Or I like the fact that she is his... They're together, whatever. Like, there's no... They never really define it, necessarily. But they're together. Yeah. And that she's still that self-possessed, competent character who... Their relationship works very well to me because they seem to respect each other a lot. And he doesn't... Neither of them...
I'll give it this. The movie is not in your face about their relationship.
No. There's like a couple moments where it's... And well, there's like 3 moments. There's and even the one is just... So there's the part at the beginning where he's kind of like... When they're walking down to the dig site and they're kind of like holding each other. And then there's a moment later where after Malcolm's been hitting on her the whole time... He's like, he asks Grant, he's like, are you two a thing? And Grant's like, yeah.
Embarrassing.
Yeah. And then there's the moment when they reunite at the end where she like jumps on him. But they don't even kiss, I don't think. They just like hug.
Yeah.
And it's the same reaction you would have after you've been through what she's been through with like anybody that you saw. Like if you're like, I might not get eaten by dinosaurs. So yeah, they're not in your face about it. And I also just liked the dynamic of their relationship for two people that are... I guess my point is that I thought the dynamic of their relationship was something you don't see a lot in a movie, especially not a big movie, where for a romantically involved couple. I thought their dynamic was something that was unusual.
No, I agree.
For Hollywood.
I agree.
And I thought it was refreshing.
And just looking at the movie, them being in a relationship doesn't bother me, and it never really did. But having read the book, like, it annoys me a little bit because it's such a Hollywood cliche.
To make that change.
Yeah.
So I get your point. Yeah, if you didn't know, like, because I didn't, and if you don't know about that not being the case, to me, not knowing that, it just felt like an interesting, cool representation of two professional people in a relationship together, because it's not in your face, because they very clearly respect each other a lot, because they're never, neither of them ever talks down to the other. They very much just seem like two passionate like about their careers people who happen to also like each other.
Yeah,
like I thought that was cool, like representation of that type of relationship. But knowing that in the book that's not the case, I could see how you'd be like, well, why did you even add that?
Yeah,
like I see that.
Something that I thought definitely worked better in the book was kind of the introduction of Dennis Nedry. Because you don't know it's him when you're first introduced to him. They don't tell you his name.
Oh, you mean, so when were we first when we
first meet him, it's the same scene where he's
Dodson?
With Dodson. But we don't know it's him.
Yes.
And I mean, having seen the movie, I knew it was him.
Right.
But I thought it was kind of cool that, like, for a couple chapters there, you don't know who the traitor is.
Right.
Like, you don't know who it's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah, they couldn't really do that in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, they could. They could shoot him as a shadowy figure. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they would have to do it in a way where you somehow didn't see him.
Or hear him, because his voice is so distinctive.
I'm not sure how it would have been doable. So, yeah. But I see what you're saying. That could be interesting that you don't know. You're like, oh, is it Arthur? Is it Is it
Yeah,
Muldoon?
this
Is it
guy,
Muldoon?
this guy, we just don't know.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a mystery there.
Yeah.
That's not...
And I mean, it is a mystery that's pretty quickly resolved.
Right.
Like, he doesn't hang on to that mystery for very long, but it is, it is for a couple chapters, so it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
The kind of warnings about the recklessness of science without ethics is a little more nuanced and explored a little more deeply in the book. So that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty surface level in the movie.
Yeah.
Although, in retrospect, I did like... I guess this is a good place as any to get into it. I did like, one, that they made it pretty clear, at least in the movie, and I'd be interested to see where it all goes in the book, that it's not necessarily... It's not science that's the problem. It's abusing science in the pursuit of profit, essentially.
Yeah.
And now Hammond doesn't necessarily come across that way in the movie, like he's just in it for the money. In fact, he's played very much the opposite, and that he's sort of just really wants to share this with people and that sort of thing. But there is a very specific financial angle that all of his investors and the lawyers and all of the other people that are funding this thing, it's sort of removed from him a little bit, but everybody else involved in this process, not the scientists, all of the other business people, it's the business side of it that's the problem, not just necessarily the fact that they've done this research and that they at least that's the vibe I get from the movie. And the other thing, more importantly, that I liked and thought was interesting is that, this wouldn't have even been... Not only is that not a problem in the movie, the only real problem is that one of the guys is real greedy and wants a lot of money. And so they would have had no issues had Nedry not...
It's true.
As it's presented in the film, they should not have had any issues had Nedry not shut down half of the park's security and power and in order to be able to rob...
Right. The book, that's present in the book, but there are other issues on top of that.
Right.
Like the fact that they're breeding.
Yes,
is a way bigger issue in the book. And that's one of the places where the book kind of goes after the idea of science without careful forethought.
Yeah.
And trying to look forward and think about what you're doing and how it's going to affect things on down the line. Because in the book, they just put the frog DNA in without thinking about, how is this going to affect this creature that I'm building? And whoops, it affects them a lot.
Right. And I get that. My thing is that, and I don't want to get into a huge, I could derail this forever, but my problem is when you start telling stories like that, it's people already think that's not how science operates 99% of the time. And to me, it represents this idea of, it's the same thing where people have problems with GMOs and all this stuff because they think that's what scientists do, that they just, we'll just grab some genes and slap it in a thing and see what happens. That's not how scientists operate. And that's not how, especially not when it comes to things like GMOs and that sort of thing, where they've been tested so thoroughly and they have thought a million steps down the road of, okay, if we put this thing in this thing, what's the outcome going to be? And they've thought of all that stuff. And now this is a good cautionary tale if you don't think of that stuff. But I think, to me, my problem is when with stuff with that kind of story is that it gives the inclination that that's how scientists in the world actually operate, and I think that's not an accurate portrayal, and I think that's damaging to people's understanding and the representation of quote unquote science in the world, and that I think I don't know if this book necessarily and movie necessarily have done the harm I'm imagining, but it bothers me when the messaging of, well, these crazy scientists just playing God, slapping chemicals around and seeing what happens. That's not how it works, and I don't like when people portray that it works that way and well, look, see, that's what happens. You get dinosaurs eating everybody. It's yeah. Like, it's a good story. It's a fun story. Like, I get it in the context of your book. It's just, that's my problem with the whole thing. It just, people already mistrust science enough without us writing made-up stories about how scientists don't think far enough ahead and, like, could ruin the world. I don't know.
Okay.
But I get it. And at the same time, yes, absolutely. Responsible science is an incredibly important thing, and it's something we should always be striving for. I think it's just the perception, the general populace's perception of science has been skewed by stories like this to think that it actually that the reality of scientific research in the world leans towards the reckless, like, we don't think about what outcomes could possibly happen with the research we're doing. We just do it and see what happens. Like, I think people think it's more like that, when in reality it's way far the other direction. Mm-hmm. And I just worry that stories like this keep skewing that perception further away from reality.
I don't disagree, and I think that's definitely a surface level way to read it.
All right, Byrne, Jesus.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, like, I can see where a lot of people would read this particular book that way.
And I
don't. I think you can read it that way. I think there's a way to read it a little bit deeper, because he does bring that kind of capitalist thing back into it. There's a whole, like, intro at the beginning of this book where he talks about how science has mainly been taken over by, like, corporations, and, like you said, they're out for money.
Right.
So they're maybe not doing their due diligence, is the idea that he's getting at.
Yeah.
I think he's more worried about capitalists than he is about scientists.
I hope so, because I share those concerns. I'm just that's just my take on what I worry people get from stories like this, because people are dumb. I don't know. Anyways, and again, I haven't read the book, so all of the nuance. I'm taking this purely from sort of the film, and sort of just trying to put myself in the shoes of a dummy who's not thinking beyond to things like, there's the implications of when capitalist systems start doing science in order to maximize profit models, and they're just thinking about, like, these scientists, they didn't think about it. Now dinosaurs are eating everybody. Sure, don't trust those scientists. They tell me I can eat GMOs, and look what they did on Jurassic Park. They made those dinosaurs and they ate everybody. So why should I eat GMOs? Because they're safe. I know. I don't know. All right. Anyways.
All right. It is much more nuanced in the book, so I liked that.
I agree. I'm sure it is.
So we talked about the dinosaurs breeding. We talked about Nedry's death scene. I'm going to run through a quick list. This is going to be like a sub-section of Better in the Book. I have titled this dope-ass shit that didn't make it into the movie.
All right, I'm on board. Let's do it.
T-Rex swimming like a crocodile and following Grant and the kids while they're on a raft.
That happens in the third movie.
Oh, this will be a fun game.
Kind of. There's a dinosaur that swims like a crocodile in one of the later movies. Oh, and they're on a raft. Okay. I'm pretty sure that's the third movie that they do that.
Some pterodactyls try to carry off Lex.
Yeah, pterodactyls are in the third or second. That happens in one of the later movies. The pterodactyls show up.
Tim almost gets eaten by the T-Rex. The T-Rex sticks his tongue out and grabs his ankle and tries to pull him towards. I don't know if dinosaur tongues could
T-Rex
actually
tongues
do that.
were like that, but
but again, we don't have soft tissue, so who knows? Who's to say? But it's enough. A creepy scene.
Yeah. So the kids aren't. From my memory, neither of the kids are in any of the sequels, so that wouldn't. Well, and like I said, the thing with Lex and the T-Rex was a different character getting grabbed by T-Rexes in the later movie. So, or not T-Rexes, pterodactyls.
There's a scene at the end where Grant kills some raptors by tricking them into eating eggs that he has injected with a deadly toxin.
Yeah, that didn't happen in any other ones that I recall.
One of the problems that they're dealing with in the book is that they know some raptors have stowed away on the boat that's headed to the mainland.
That's the second one.
So one of the reasons that it's so important for Grant and the kids to get back to the visitors' lodge is because they're the only ones who know that can tell them about these raptors.
It doesn't happen in the second one, but in the second one, the T-Rex is on the boat and eats everybody, and then escapes when it gets back to New York. I don't know, it gets back to mainland.
Doesn't it go to Los Angeles?
Yeah, probably.
Isn't that so the third one, that's the one where the T-Rex is in Los Angeles?
No, that's the second one.
Oh,
that's the end of the second one.
Gosh dang.
Because that's the end of the second one, the T-Rex gets back to the mainland.
The raptor nest I mentioned earlier. They go and find the raptor nest, which is in like a volcano. Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. Sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, like a volcano full of velociraptors. It doesn't get much cooler than that.
Yeah, well, I feel like you could do a very Alien type, the movie Alien type thing with the eggs in the volcano, like the creepy passage, like, you know, like lava tubes that they're going through. With like eggs everywhere and velociraptors hiding in the corners. Yeah, it could be very creepy and awesome.
There are different character deaths in the book. Than there are in the movie.
Does Dr. Ian Malcolm die?
No.
Oh, thank God.
No, wait, yes, he does.
What?
Yes, he does. I forgot about that because he doesn't like get eaten or die in a blaze of glory, but he does die. He is injured more in the book than he is in the movie. He's like way more grievously injured, like there are bones sticking out of his flesh and stuff. And he spends most of the book like high on morphine. And, like, saying, like, really great shit while he's high on morphine.
Yeah. He just does it stone cold sober in the movie. We're sorry, he is drinking throughout the film. But
he ends up dying, though, because they can't get him off the island fast enough.
That's a better in the movie. I'm marking it down right now. The fact that he gets to come back for a sequel and another sequel.
No, Wu dies. The scientist.
Oh, well, yeah. He can't die. BD Wong can't die in the movies because he is pivotal now.
Yeah, he dies in the book. That was when I was home for lunch that day and I was reading and I went, oh shit. Yeah. That was when he died.
Yeah, he just disappears. All the workers, most of the workers get on the ferry and leave. Yeah. And before the storm comes.
And then there's another character death that I want to talk about a little bit more later.
Okay.
And that's all I have for better in the book.
All right, that was some dope-ass shit that happened in the book and not in the movie. Let's move on to better in the movie.
My life has taught me one lesson, Hugo, and not the one I thought it would. Happy endings only happen in the movies.
So the movie really simplifies the explanation of why there are some potential legal issues, like why the investors are nervous about the park. Yeah. By showing us that worker dying. Yeah. I think it maybe has a little bit more strife in the book. It's implied that there have been maybe a lot of deaths.
More than one.
Yeah. Deaths and injuries and bad shit happening. But I think the movie explains it a little more clearly.
Yeah. And I had a note on that. I was like, that family absolutely deserves to sue the company. Yeah. Because so this super advanced, park that where they're designed to hold dinosaurs. They don't have a crane that they can use to raise some guy's got to get on top of the cage.
Go on top of there.
You can't get a crane or like a forklift thing to pull that up.
How did that sucker end up with that job? He drew the short straw that day.
Yeah, for real. But even more importantly, on top of that, you're telling me that the cage mechanism, you don't have a way to lock that to... Because the reason he gets eaten in that scene is the thing, somehow pushes the cage away. Yeah. The cage, the thing they were transporting it into its enclosure, it somehow kicks that away from the wall so that there's a gap where it can grab him and eat him. 100% part of your design would be when we move the container in, it locks to the enclosure so that there is no way for the dinosaur to separate it from the enclosure and then get out.
And I think I think we could connect that back to the perils of science and capitalism combined. Right. But they're so eager for the park to open
to make the money and sell the t-shirts.
They didn't do everything correctly.
Right. No, and that's fair, yeah. cutting corners in order to maximize
Yes.
profits. Yeah.
Evil. I liked the informational ride video. We mentioned that earlier. The Dino DNA video.
Yes.
You do the voice better than I do.
Dino DNA.
There we go. So in the book, Lex is the younger sibling.
Oh, okay.
And Tim is older. He's like 11 and she's like 8 or 9 maybe. And I'm going to count swapping them as a good choice. One, because Lex was really obnoxious in the book. Like, I hated her. I cheered when I thought the pterodactyls were going to carry her away because she was so irritating.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think made that a good choice was that Tim is similarly obsessed with dinosaurs in the book. Not that an 11-year-old can't be obsessed with dinosaurs. They totally can.
Right.
I think it's maybe just a little more endearing coming from, like, a little kid.
Yeah. And he's probably... I think they swapped him, but also aged them both up slightly. Like, she seems struck... I don't know. To me, it struck me more as, like, 10 and 13 instead of like...
Oh, see, they strike me more as like 7 and 11.
Oh, okay. Maybe I don't know how old kids are when I look at them, so I can't tell. Like, kids just, they're like, it could be any age when they're under like 18 or 19. They're all just like kids.
The line "woman inherits the earth" is not in the book.
Oh, the whole spiel.
Yeah,
that's a great moment.
And I love that line. And I never thought about it, but now I feel like it's made even better by the fact that the dinosaurs are all female.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, that's true. That totally, I never connected that with...
Yeah.
Yeah, I never put that together. It's good.
We talked about the shaking cups of water.
Mm-hmm.
That was, I think, a good ad. Kind of reminiscent of Jaws.
Yeah, very much a
that,
Jaws-y type. That's that building of tension off camera before, which this movie does a lot of, which is famously in Jaws, the dinosaur wasn't, or the dinosaur, basically a dinosaur. The shark wasn't ready yet, so you don't see it until much later in the film than they had originally meant for. But that actually works to the benefit of the film. And then this is a very similar thing. You do not see, in the opening scene where the guy gets eaten by a dinosaur, you do not see a dinosaur. I mean, like, flashes of, like, maybe scales or whatever through stuff, but like you don't see the dinosaur. And same thing even in building up with the T-Rex, there's so many times where you think you're going to see it and you don't see it.
And another good change that they made coming off of that too was that in the book they see the dinosaur eat the goat.
Oh, yeah.
Before they come back and it actually breaks out of its enclosure. So I think, like, not having it come out and eat the goat was a good decision.
Yeah, because, so you're saying that when they tempt it with the goat, they see it, it comes, and they see it in that moment. Oh, yeah, it's much better. Because in the movie, nothing happens. The goat sits down. They could drive away, and then when they show back up later, the goat's gone.
I'm upset for that goat.
Breaks out. You and Lex both.
I liked that they eliminated... the PR guy character, combined him with Gennaro and then just killed Gennaro. He was pointless anyway.
Yeah. But I thought Gennaro was the best representation of the part 2 of our 3-part cautionary tale, kind of. Where he really does represent the greed, the capitalistic corner cutting, the everything wrong with the park, pretty much, is embodied in him. Because he's worried about the investors. He's only worried about the investors. He's only worried about himself. He's worried about making money and how much merch they can sell and all that sort of stuff. And, and he's like, oh, sure, we'll have a coupon day so poor people can come. Fine, yeah, I think so I liked having him because it abated some of my problems with the potential interpretations of the film.
The Jeep chase scene, way better in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
There is a short scene that's similar in the book, but it's not nearly as...
Must go faster.
Pulse pounding.
Must go faster.
Kitchen scene I also thought was better in the movie.
Yeah, kitchen scene is so good.
And for me, like, the big thing... Like, okay, books are amazing. You'll never get me to say otherwise. That said, there are some things that just really jump up and down and scream for a visual medium, and dinosaurs are one of those things.
One of those things, 100%, yeah.
Okay, so that was what I had for better in the movie.
Okay.
Did you have any general notes? Because there was just one big thing that I wanted to talk about.
I had two things.
Okay.
One, and I mentioned this earlier, that there was a couple things that I've always found super tactily satisfying. Mm-hmm. One of them is the can, the storage can for the embryos, and the way when he's sliding them in, the sound, everything about that. The other moment in this movie that was always super satisfying to me, that I always... I don't even know what it is about it. I mean, I guess I do. It's the moment where Sattler is restarting the power. Mm-hmm. She gets into the substation or whatever, and it's all those switches.
Oh, yeah.
Going down the thing, and she has to open the little plastic door and push the button on each one. Something about the way the sound the little door makes when she opens it, the sound the button makes when she pushes it, and then it goes from red to green, and then she does like a bunch of them in a row. There's something about that scene that is so like... It's like visual ASMR. Uh-huh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like something about it, and I'm sure, I guess not, some of it's auditory too because of the sound that they make and that sort of thing. Very satisfying moment when she's pushing all those buttons, and it's funny because it's played against the worried that they're gonna get electrocuted on the fence, but still I don't care. And I was like, I just fucking electrocute them, push those buttons. Oh, the other thing I had was. So there's a discussion of the fact that Lex is like a hacker, mm-hmm. and that's like one of her character things. So she says she's a hacker, mm-hmm. And it kind of comes back at the end of the film where she's the one who locks the doors again, goes through the computer and locks the doors as the Raptors are trying to get in because Sattler and Grant are holding the door shut or whatever. I was really disappointed because I remembered how goofy that scene is where they're like flying through. How I assume she says it's a Unix system. I'm not a computer like tech. I mean, I know a bit about computers, but like I'm not remotely. So somebody might be able to correct me on this. But that interface that she uses to do that is so dumb and not what that sort of system would have. Because here's the thing. This is the thing that's really frustrating. And I think what my biggest complaint about this moment is that I think it robs her of an interesting character moment. Mm-hmm. Because basically all she does is she flies through a menu from like a top-down view of like the systems are like look like buildings in like a city. And she finds the one that says visitor center, and then the one that says door locks, and double clicks it, and then the doors lock.
Right.
Like anybody could do that. Like it takes no knowledge or skill. But the thing is that earlier in the movie, with all of Nedry's stuff and all of the programming we see, actually looks fairly, from what I know of programming, looks fairly representative of what, it's just like lines of code, and like when Arnold's like trying to get into these like access security console, and it's like denied access, like that, from my understanding, that's what that would kind of look like. To me, I always thought it would be so much more interesting if she had to actually do that.
Yeah. No, I agree.
You know what I mean? Like if she had to go in and type out like access visitor center door locks, blah, 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 and like actually use what she says skills she has to fix that problem would be more interesting, and it wouldn't look so goofy.
Now, I will maybe slightly counter that by pointing out that it was 1993. So maybe not everybody could have gone in and done the computer stuff, because not everybody, like,
okay, I see what you're saying.
Computers weren't a part of the fabric of our society yet.
Right. And at that time, very few people had used computer.
Right, that's the point that I'm making.
Right.
But I agree with you in that, one, we've already seen the lines of code, and like we've seen it look more
fairly realistic.
More realistic. And two, she does say that she has
skills
that
in this
kind
sort
of skill.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think they could have made it more interesting at the very least.
Yeah, and it is the way they do it's more visual, and I'm air quoting visual because it is, but it's stupid, and it hasn't aged well. I don't think. Like I think it's so goofy looking to me. I could be wrong, but I think it looks stupid as shit. But yeah, I was like, man, just have her like actually type, do that. It'd be so much more interesting.
I do want to just bring up real quick before I get into my thing. I think of this every time I watch this movie. The score is so freaking gorgeous.
Oh, it's great. It's John Williams.
I know. But it's just, it gets me every time.
I can't not stop humming it for like the next hour and a half after, or whistling it for like an hour after I watch it every time. You know what's funny is I always forget that the song I always think of as the theme song isn't the theme. Mm-hmm. The theme, because I always think of like that one. Mm-hmm. That's like the secondary theme. The main theme is the other one, and I never. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I obviously know that song, but I always think of the other one for some reason because it's more like, I don't know, I find it more interesting and catchy, but they're both great, and all the music is fantastic.
The theme encapsulates the wonder of Jurassic
It does.
Park.
It really does. It does capture that. But the other one encapsulates the adventure. It's more adventurous and reminds me more of Indiana Jones.
Okay. On our prequel episode, we talked about cautionary tales.
Yeah.
And we talked about how the cautionary tale has a specific structure, right? We have our introduction of the taboo thing. We have our person who ignores the warnings. And then we have the grisly end to that person who ignored the warnings.
Yeah.
So you alluded to earlier that you feel like you see that within the lawyer character.
Yes, I think that's most represented in the lawyer because I think he most represents the flaw, the second part. Mm-hmm. I think he's most of the characters we see, kind of. He's like the most guilty of it. So
for you, then the taboo, the thing that we shouldn't do is allow greed.
To me, I much more enjoy it as a cautionary tale about capitalism than I do about science.
Right.
So I like that the person who is pushing the capitalist, the gung ho capitalist narrative, and like we got to make as much money as this is a cash cow. We got to make we're gonna make money and we got to do it now. Yeah. That representation, I like that being the caution. Mm-hmm. The commie that I am, I prefer. Just joking, but I prefer that cautionary tale to the cautionary tale about science. Okay. And so I think the movie does that to some extent.
I think that kind of both cautions are present in this story. I think there is the cautionary tale about capitalism, but I also think there's this kind of caution about like maybe we shouldn't bring dinosaurs back from the dead.
No, that's 100% there. I just disagree with that. On a fundamental level in my soul, I disagree with that caution.
You think we should bring back dinosaurs from the dead?
I think if we can do it safely, 100%, why wouldn't we?
Because they'd be miserable here.
Why?
The atmosphere is way less oxygenated.
Okay, again, when I say if we can do it safely, I mean for us and the dinosaurs.
Okay, all right. I'm just thinking of the dinosaurs here.
I am too. I agree. I'm not saying if we can do it and they're going to be miserable. No, that's part of the equation. I just have no problem with doing it if we can do it in a way that is safe for everybody.
Yeah, and that's an element of the story that's in the book that doesn't really come through to the movie either, is that the dinosaurs are not okay.
Right. No, that comes through in the movie.
Maybe a little more in the book.
There's probably more, because obviously there's all that's, like the sick but it does kind of get abandoned in the movie, is the thing. It's there, it's presented initially in the movie of, the sick Triceratops, and they're eating plants that are poisonous, and you didn't really think about it. You just got all these plants, and half of them are poisonous to them, and so you're not really thinking about the well-being as much as you should probably of these dinosaurs. Yeah. So that's presented kind of for a second, and then it's just abandoned for spectacle in the movie. So
it's a movie.
Yeah.
So going back to the cautionary tale thing, I want to talk about that in relation to the book. And I got to talk about John Hammond.
Yeah.
Because he's a completely different character.
I was aware of this. I didn't know exactly how he changed, but I was aware that Hammond is not Hammond from the book.
So in the movie, he's kind of a naive, jovial, eccentric visionary.
Yes.
He's like a dinosaur Santa Claus.
That's 100% what he is in the movie, and I love him for it.
He's delightful.
I love him for it.
In the book, he much more represents that element of capitalist greed.
I think that
we were talking about. Yeah. That scene where he's like, "Oh, I want everybody to come." He has a monologue, like an internal monologue in the book that is literally the exact opposite of that. Of like, "Oh, all the children will come." Well, all the rich ones anyway.
Yeah.
So in the book, he much more represents that element, even more so than the lawyer does.
Which I think honestly works more overall.
Yeah.
I think
I do too.
Because that then applies it, he represents kind of both sides, not even both sides, but since he was the one who orchestrated this whole thing, it makes sense as a cautionary tale for him to, sorry, I don't want to step on your...
Well, yeah, he represents that kind of capitalist element, but he also represents kind of the science without ethics element.
That's what I mean, though, both sides of it.
Right, because he goes and he finds people that he can manipulate into creating his vision exactly the way that he sees it, and damn the consequences, and damn how everybody else feels about it. He wants it done this way. Yeah. And I think where maybe you can feel a little bit better about that is that he's not a scientist.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. He's an entrepreneur.
Right.
He's a rich guy.
Yeah. And that was, I think I had heard that was roughly that they completely changed him for the movie to like you said, kind of the Santa Claus, like just visionary, like I want to share dinosaurs with the world.
Yeah, no, and he very specifically seeks people out who won't challenge him. Yeah. Like they talk about Dr. Wu. He like grabs him like right out of grad school. Yeah. And he's like this young, impressionable guy.
Right.
So as far as how this fits into our cautionary tale format, Hammond gets warning after warning from multiple characters, not just Ian Malcolm. Mm-hmm. He gets warnings from Dr. Wu, from Dr. Grant, from Dr. Sadler, from pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
About why this is not maybe such a great idea. He ignores all of that, of course, and plows on forward. And he dies.
Yeah.
He dies an incredibly horrific and grisly death. But there's like kind of a great poetic justice to it.
100%.
As there should be in a cautionary tale. We'll get into spoiler territory here for a second. He dies because he's out for a walk and he thinks he hears the T-Rex roar. So he like dashes off and he falls down a hill. Of course, he's like in his 70s.
Yeah.
So he like breaks his ankle and can't get back up the hill. Well, it turns out that he wasn't actually hearing the T-Rex. He was hearing like a simulation through these speakers that they have out on the grounds.
Yeah.
And it's his grandkids who he invited to try and manipulate everyone else that was there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's a grand irony there.
Yeah, there's a grand irony there.
And it's very fitting.
He ends up getting eaten by the little like scavenger dinosaurs. They come up out of the woods and they see that he's injured and can't go anywhere. Yeah, he does not make it off the island.
Yeah.
There's no pensive staring at the
proletariat
amber.
masses devour him.
That they do. That they do.
Yeah. No, that is a very interesting change, and I really I like what I have heard of the book and how, as you describe it there. I think there's a lot of really interesting symbolism and just a lot more depth and nuance to that portrayal or to that characterization of Hammond. I do like jolly old dinosaur Santa Claus.
Yeah,
he's delightful.
He is. He's delightful.
And I sort of enjoy also that naivete of him. And then and like you said, I see the sort of cautionary tale play out more with the lawyer. It's not as impactful as it would be if it was like a bigger character like Hammond. But it's still there to some extent. After we finished recording, Katie and I continued discussing the end of the movie and how we think they could have made a few slight changes to help drive the message home a little better. And we think what they could have done is with some slight tweaks to the lawyer character, and then they let him survive until the end of the film, and at the end of the film he still is insisting on trying to push forward. Even after he's seen everything go wrong and people have died because of what has happened, he's still trying to push forward because he sees the potential to make money and move that towards the end of the film, and then maybe he dies there somehow, even though he's still insisting, after seeing all these other people die, no, we can still do this, we can still make money, and then he gets eaten. That would sort of help deliver on the cautionary tale in the film and drive home the theme at the end of the film and sort of wrap it all up with a pretty bow. So that's our change to Jurassic Park, to make it a more satisfying thematic narrative. Get at us, Steven Spielberg. Well, let's do it then. Let's final verdict this mother.
Now, are you ready for your sentence?
Sentence? But there must be a verdict first.
Sentence first, verdict afterward.
You know, this is a really tough one for me because I love the movie. And I think that the movie tells a really good, really fun story. I think the movie makes a lot of great changes and does a good job of paring down some stuff from the book.
Yeah, it's a pretty long book.
It is. It's pretty long. But even though, like I said, a lot of dope ass shit happens in the book that just doesn't, like, we've got that runtime limit, you know.
Yeah, and it's still a fairly long movie. It's 2 hours and like 10 minutes. So it's kind of long.
I gotta give it to the book, though. Wow. And don't get me wrong, I love the movie, and if anything, I would say that maybe they're on par with each other just for different reasons.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I think the movie stumbles a little bit in its conveyance of a message.
I agree.
I think it's a little surface level. It's not as nuanced as the book is, and it does kind of drop a lot of things.
I think that's the biggest thing, is it abandons message for spectacle.
It abandons message for spectacle, which is fine for a blockbuster.
Right.
But this is kind of an important message.
Yeah, and I think more importantly, I think they just needed to have a little bit more... They just needed to finish off the message. They just needed to wrap it up some way.
Yeah.
Do something towards the end, because it's in my opinion, it's with the lawyer sort of representing that he dies an hour into the movie, and then the rest of it's just them surviving. Yeah. And we don't ever get anything else added on, other than, you know, he's like, I've decided not to endorse your park, and Hammond's like, yeah, me either. Let's get the fuck out of here. But that doesn't. This is sort of like, well, that was, we fucked that up. Nah. Like, moving on. Like, yeah. I could definitely see having them equal footing, but different. But equal.
I would put them on par, like I said, for different reasons. They're doing different things. The book is attempting to convey a message, maybe a little bit more so than entertain, although it was a very entertaining book.
Yeah, you seem to enjoy it quite a bit.
And the movie is entertaining. Yeah. And that's what it's doing.
Yeah. With a sprinkling of
message. Yeah, with a sprinkling of, here's some message, boys and girls.
But more importantly, watch this T-Rex eat a velociraptor.
Da, da, da.
Cool. All right. Well, chalk that one up for the book.
And I really didn't even know until we sat down and started talking about this,
sure
which one I was going to pick. Sometimes I know as soon as we finish the movie. Not every time.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Over the course of this hour and a half, it has been decided. Katie, what are we doing next time? While you remember what we're doing next time, I'm going to plug all of our stuff. If you enjoy our show, please rate, review us on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever else you download our lovely podcast. Also, you can find us on all of the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Goodreads, Instagram, Reddit. Just look up This Film Is Lit. You will find us. So now, Katie, what's next?
Up next, we are going to be doing a classic film from our childhood. that I didn't even know was based on a book until I read it somewhere in a listicle of books, movies you didn't know were based on books, of which I read every one I find now. We're doing Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey.
I didn't know we were doing that.
We are doing that.
I have a schedule on my desk, and I somehow didn't remember. Yeah, I didn't know that was based on a book either.
Yeah.
Is it like a kid's book?
Yeah, it's a kid's book from like the
book?
60s.
Interesting.
So
Well,
see how
they're
it
going to
goes.
have to add a lot to that. Or like they're going to have to expand a lot to fill that hour and a half long runtime from the... I guess it depends. I was thinking picture book. It might not be that short.
No, it's not a picture book.
Okay, never mind. So then maybe they won't have to add that much. It'll probably be just about the right amount of runtime.
Yeah.
So cool. Homeward Bound. I'm sure a lot of our listeners remember fondly, and maybe not so fondly, as they cried, wondering if Shadow was going to make it over that hill. Spoilers.
By the by, I don't think you've ever actually seen me cry at a movie before.
Yeah, I have.
I'm going to openly weep when we watch this.
I have. I'm pretty sure I've seen you cry in a movie, but yeah, it's definitely a tearjerker. It's definitely a tearjerker. So, Homeward Bound next episode. Until that time, guys, gals, non-binary, everybody else, keep reading books, keep watching movies, keep being awesome.